So this last part of the of my letter to the Vatican, and that was my second notice to them. It also included at the end my second notice to the UPU. I'd really hoped that perhaps Universal Postal Union could take responsibility, Vatican take responsibility, and they could work together, because it is about an objectivity and having an oversight over the explicitly profit driven corporations, like the World Economic Forum, and banks and military and all that sort of thing. So I hoped, for a while there, don't worry, all that naivety and hope that anybody would take any responsibility has obviously gone now. But anyway, just to explain, at the end of my notice to the Vatican, I added why I thought that the UPU could take responsibility and share it. So this was my notice to, further to my notice to issue a mea culpa, the self-blame decree, taking a bit of responsibility just to allow things to move on and be resolved. Sent to Masahiko Motoki, Director General of the UPU, on the 8th July 2024. Please acknowledge this synopsis of the UPU's authority and how you could effect system change and ensure the UPU maintain their post and logistics universal service obligation, USO. People would still be prepared to accept that the UPU have innocently perpetuated the fraud that we seek to correct. Therefore, I will use the second notice to clarify a schedule of harms, losses and injury perpetuated by the UPU, the granting of their diplomatic immunity, their reduced postal service and threat to drop their USO. Actions by the UPU and UPS that have caused mental anguish. Postal fraud, delivering wrongly addressed and malicious demands. Facilitating tax and bank fraud and therefore aiding and abetting debt enslavement. 3. Indemnifying mercenary officials to usurp the jurisdiction of men and women and laws of the land through admiralty law. 4. Failure to maintain its universal service obligation, maintain a postal service. 5. Misappropriation of USO funds, huge amount, for military technology logistics 4.0 away from agreed by treaty postal and logistics services. We're talking millions and millions, hundreds of millions have gone to that. ITU, I think, is their sister one who deals with digital communications. Postal communications didn't get any, or we didn't see sign of it. 6. Notifications to cease and desist genocide, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, surveillance, exploitation, war and fraud are never acknowledged. The UPU presides by international treaty over government, military, banks, courts and all other corporations and commerce, and yet UPU does not insist these corporations acknowledge, respond or adhere to registered post or other formal notifications. 7. Violations of UPU founding principles by allowing commerce, the lowest jurisdiction, to overpower superior jurisdictions. 8. The UPU has betrayed humanity, the unincorporated people who brought the powers of the UPU into being in leaving them with no recourse to their assets, courts, law, justice, governance, or the logistics to even conduct business due to the monopoly of every product and service by corporations. 9. Censorship and defamation of men and women is made possible by the UPU through international and national public and private, written and digital communication. The UPU was specifically founded to facilitate communication across the single postal territory, by which is meant everywhere, to give people equal opportunity to conduct and participate in commerce, inflexible regimes and lack of choice. That's what we've been left with. 10. The UPS is responsible, that's the Universal Postal Service, is responsible for making the corrupt system intractable to resolution by insisting that we misidentify ourselves as corporate entities, use their name for us, write in capital letters, and must fill in boxes, the four-corner rule to register postage. This necessitates the people step out of their jurisdiction and standing, facilitates unknowing joinder, and renders them liable for debts. 11. The UPU have made a mockery of human and animal suffering by allowing the false advertising of food and medical products through the postal and telecommunications networks. The UPS, Universal Postal Service, mocks men and women directly by denying their living status and refusing to acknowledge that they are the lawful owners, stewards and beneficiaries of all assets and enterprises. The UPU has inadvertently, well, I hope inadvertently, trapped men and women in a diminished jurisdiction of a person. Peace, self-governance, banking in the public interest and social change are reduced postal services and create let me just see exactly what that means. Anyway, all those things are reduced along with the postal service and create terrible disadvantage. The UPU prevent informed consent and its withdrawal by A, not circulating critical information, and by B, not delivering notification of people's non-consent, and C, abolishing corporations that are, and how they should be doing it is by abolishing corporations that are pretending to have consensus and for pretending to be non-commercial public diplomatic organisations. It's absurd, to call the UN or to call the government, a non-commercial public service when actually there's so much commercial deal making going on. It's a free for all, and that's when they lose their diplomatic immunity, when they're found involved in commercial enterprises or conflicts of interest. So now is being a really good moment. Claims, charges, summons and sentences are legitimised through delivery by the Universal Postal Service, allowing police and courts to enforce the exploitation with criminalisation and incarceration, regardless how fraudulent it is. Because we get the letter, we have to respond to it. The UPU have removed all choices from commerce, sales, purchases, demand, ethics, quality and supply by facilitating unilateral coercive measures and trade treaties. People and governments must, on penalty of prosecution and bankruptcy, buy, accept liability for, adopt whatever technology is released without regulation and despite proof of harms. 15. The UPU disregards the privacy of homes by treating them like a public post office, where men, women and children can be subjected to threatening behaviour, bullying, intimidation, harassment, deliberate isolation and deprivation. Personage and barratry by the postal delivery facilitates relentless claims on our private properties. So, financial harms. So, 16. The Post Office is currently associated with the scandal against their employees in Great Britain, but worldwide it goes unmentioned that you are delivering letters with uncancelled stamps, like a franking machine, which allows corporations to avoid liability and oversight by the Universal Postal Union. 17. The Universal Postal Union has facilitated the theft of assets and property as guarantees for loans and other fraudulent bills. 18. Thankfully, the UPU has the final authority over commerce, which is conducted through contracts. In full knowledge, the Universal Postal Union has overseen the removal of the golden peg, the introduction of usury and fractional reserve banking, through to the reduction of fiscal responsibility by banks to requiring, since 2021, 0% reserve of deposits. In addition, the UPU is perpetuating pressure on people in connection with wills and inheritance and the theft of children as infants when they are registered to the state via birth certificates. Children are quickly removed from their superior living jurisdiction and left within the maritime jurisdiction as dead and lost at sea. Physical harms. 19. The UPU are complicit in the physical promotion, posted invitations and demands to attend, and logistics of administering the pharmaceutical products and implementation of military technologies across the world. 20. The UPU have failed to oversee the media, which comprises of corporate bodies responsible for the messaging that made people accept lies and manufacture consent to restrictions and GMOs. 21. The UPU has not socialised or put on public record even one statement that would acknowledge our status or alert people to the truth en masse. That is why the remedy must start with instructing post office networks to deliver an announcement confirming 1. The superior jurisdiction of living people over corporations, 2. Apologising for the unchecked overreach and fraud and notice of the abolition of governments, military banks, commercial courts, and 3. Explaining how compensation will be paid by the return of stolen assets. 22. People cannot question conflicts of interest. By giving away your USO funding to the International Telecommunication Union, the UPU is responsible for proliferation of military technology passed off as communications infrastructure, but in fact reducing people's capacity to create a paper trail of communication for accountability and to seek remedy. The UPU has contributed a great deal to the great difficulty and distress people and entire UN member states have had in reporting and wielding sufficient authority to stop proposals by the Conference of the Parties. Communications even sent by registered post on human rights, animal rights, environmental protection, public law and common law have just gone, while for-profit offices and staff can ignore charges, confident that people will never be able to pursue an investigation. 23. What people are looking for now is a willingness on the part of the UPU to use their authority and platform to expose the fraudulent system and facilitate the return of the assets as remedy. It can be peaceful and non-contentious and be a great legacy to empower the people to stop the variety of hostilities as criminal. Currently, while one court explores criminal ministerial misconduct, another finds that COVID crimes meet the definition of a deployment of biological weapons, while yet another court upholds the official privileged rights of directors to not even be investigated or questioned. In other countries again, vectors and biological materials tested only by their producers are approved for experimental and emergency permits and transported and promoted by the UPS. The people require a universal recognition of their legal authority to avoid the wasted time and stress of dealing with captured institutions and sometimes winning but usually losing. 24. The mea culpa, a self-blame decree, can provide this universal declaration of corrected status via a mea culpa. At the moment, what has been understood by men and women in one part of the world can still be dismissed by government oppression or corporate influence in another. The reason for founding the UPU was to create a level playing field for international commerce of postal and logistics services for people to openly communicate about mutually beneficial exchanges. 25. What is happening instead is that corporations are making resource-rich countries uninhabitable through war, weather manipulation, starvation, and the release of weaponized insects and other novel technologies, and then falsely publicising events as health emergencies of international concern, PHEIC, PHEIC, to justify the deployment of countermeasures. The UPU and International Telecommunications Union are sharing the narrative that humanity is one, facing climate change, while omitting to share the Military Weather Modification Advisory Board and the many commercial and military weather manipulation patents, and 2, facing natural diseases and pandemics, omitting to share the genetic engineering of lethal pathogens through gain of function and their intentional spread through gene drives to create a market for those pharmaceutical products and interventions. The UPU can stop the social, genetic and weather engineering by exposing, even indirectly, the military, NATO and UN Security Council and various shadow directors for violating international law. The UPU can also provide remedy by declaring that notifications delivered by the UPS are acknowledged. In the UPU's original treaty is enshrined the authority to remove the power of attorney over the affairs of bankrupt persons and governments. To say that again, that's the good bit. In the UPU's original treaty is enshrined the authority to remove the power of attorney over the affairs of bankrupt persons and governments. That is a lot of power. That's a great authority. The mea culpa is a peaceful, non-combative instrument that simply admits the flaws within its own organisation and commits to correcting them. 26. Dual-use research. Dual-use research is where publicly funded medical research is allowed and conducted while the products and results of the research can then be kept secret on IP, trade or security terms. All technologies beyond human understanding, including the interaction of gene-edited microbes in any context, are a weapon of mass destruction once deployed on a population without their consent. People must recover the authority to refuse to register patents that might constitute a crime against humanity in themselves, such as that exclusive rights to the computerization of the human body, or the methods for smuggling IP technology into bacteria, or electroporation, which is genetic modification via electric pulse, so remotely conducted. In conjunction with the widespread rollout of smart meters and other infrastructure, there is capacity to harm, an inability to monitor or report harm, and without leaving any traceable proof of cause. 27. The UPU have been negligent in its duty of care in facilitating the movement of products around the world, regardless of their compliance with safety, health or ethical standards. Although the Postal Service courts in Britain have been vilified for ruining the lives of postmasters with wrongful prosecutions for the Horizon technology failures, the cases do demonstrate that the Universal Postal Service has judicial authority, jurisdiction and capacity to hold its own courts and deliver its own court orders, penalties, prosecutions and sentences. Government ministers must know now that they do not have jurisdiction to hold the Post Office to account, but these two facts considered together show this perfect and crucial opportunity for the UPU to publicly clarify its authority and socialise what the Post Office courts may decide to do to meet its founding treaty obligations, which may include the removal of a government when necessary, and provide communication to enable new governance structures to be decided, people elected, and rights to diplomatic immunity revoked. So I'm going to read that bit again because that's such good news. The UPU has authority to decide to meet its founding treaty obligations, which can include the removal of a government when necessary and provide communications to enable new government structures to be decided, people elected, and rights to diplomatic immunity revoked. So we need the communication even when we don't need the government or a need to take the government to task. Please consider how you might respond best to a certified class action of the whole jurisdiction of men and women in your superior court. Thank you so much for reviewing how the UPU has a duty of care to men and women and how the UPS could, with immediate effect, distribute reparation, returning people to their homes and all peace negotiations as required. As the Vatican stated, the World Bank's return of the family legacy assets, people's deposits and the end of usury are matters of justice, not generosity. Please make sure that becomes widely known too. With gratitude from Francis on behalf of all living beings. So that's the end of what went to the Vatican the last time. This will be our third notice coming up.